Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well, 206-926-1522. Thanks. It's time for Pornisode. And I was inspired to do this because it's time. It's been a little while, and I've just done several quickies in the last month or so for parents whose kids were exposed to porn. So I thought I'd do something that might be helpful, a little shocking maybe, and talk about some statistics. And these are from a website called Fight the New Drug. They are an anti-porn organization. They have information there about not using porn and the impact of porn. They're not my favorite, but they do have good research and good articles and in terms of what I'm going to talk about and stats. Here we go. 75% of parents believed their child had never encountered porn, but of those children, 53% reported that they had in fact seen porn. Over half of boys, 53%, and over a third of girls, 39%, reported believing that pornography was a realistic depiction of sex. As of May 2021, porn sites received more website traffic in the U.S. than, ready, Twitter. Well, so much for that. Instagram, Netflix, Pinterest, and LinkedIn combined. This one I don't like at all. You're not going to like it either. Teen is one of the most consistently popular porn themes, and research is showing that this theme is 1, becoming increasingly popular, and 2, includes portrayal of underage characters. According to a 2020 survey, approximately 45% of teens who consumed porn did so in part to learn about, you know what, sex. And the last one that I culled from this list, survey results show that 1 in 4 18 to 24-year-olds listed pornography as the most helpful source to learn about sex. The article's called 20 Stats About the Porn Industry, and the link is in the show notes. What am I going to do with this? What are you going to do with this? Well, first of all, these are legit surveys and studies, and I think the first thing to do is believe them. Believe them. I don't like that 50% or whatever that awful stat was of kids thinking that porn is real sex. It's so not. And when you talk with your kids about pornography, it's really important because it helps demystify it and helps them have, better information. Super important. The other thing is that we know that kids who are well informed about sex and sexuality do better. When they see porn, they can make better sense of it. They're less likely to use it. Pretty much everybody with a penis who's an adolescent uses it, at least at some point. People with clitorises, of course, use it. They all use it. Not all of them, sorry. They'll use it, and they can use it, I'm just going to say responsibly. But some kids can't, and some human beings can't. And it's our, as parents, and your as a parent, responsibility to make sure your kids have the least amount of access to this as they possibly can have. And you do everything in your power to make this happen. And I know, like people say to me, ship has sailed, or they're too old, or whatever. And yeah, that may be true, but if you're not doing everything you can to prevent your kids from seeing this, if you're not doing everything you can to educate them in case they do see it, well, I'm sorry, did I say in case? I forgot. They will see it. When they see it, what to do. you're not doing your parenting job. And I know when I talk about this, I get in this scoldy shame mode, and I'm just going to rejigger that, and I feel sad, and I'm sad for kids. Like, I cannot imagine. And you know me, I would have been right there in this right now. I would have been all over the porn. I would have been watching it. I would have been wanking around to it. Like, I would have been there. And I cannot imagine this being a first exposure to sex instead of doing it and fooling around and that kind of thing. And so it just makes me sad. And I don't know what else to do with that. I kind of feel like I'm shouting down a well sometimes. And if you are using Bark or Circle or Custodio to protect your kids, yay, you. Go, 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 go. And if you are not, I don't know what to tell you. I just had a quickie with a family, a pair of parents whose 14-year-old, they just found out that he's been using pornography a lot, and he feels really ashamed about it. So he's Googled up how to stop using porn, and a whole lot of what is out there is shame-based. It's a whole lot, a ton of it is out of Christian communities. They have a big problem with it, and we couple that with shame. So this kiddo is ashamed. He's trying to stop. He can't stop. It's this awful cycle. The support, air quotes, he's getting is just making things worse for him. And it's a problem. And my heart just goes out to this child, to the family. They feel terrible because they didn't do the things they needed to do that I just talked about to make sure their kids were safe online. And I don't want to shame them because no one wants to think, oh, my kid, you don't want to think, oh yeah, my kid's going to be jerking off. No one wants to think about that. I mean, I just pretended it's not happening at all with Milo, which it's not, of course. So we don't want to think about our kids as sexual humans, as sexual beings, of having sexual feelings, of wanting to enjoy their bodies and other people's bodies. And I think that denial is one of the things that is happening with this. Also, for some fucked up reason, we don't think our kids are going to be curious about this, or they're not ready to be curious about it. I'm not quite sure what that means. I think people come out the womb in a lot of ways being curious about, just the basic stuff, like where did I come from and how are babies made and what's that thing hanging off the front of that person and, what's this thing that feels super good when I touch it. So I think curiosity is a natural part of childhood, and this is a natural thing to be curious about. And I also think that people forget. Think back when you were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Was this on your radar? What were you thinking? If you had a resource like this, would you have used it? I think we just lose touch with that. So anywho, I've had a little bit of a rough week, and I just would like to lovingly, for once in my life, encourage you to take me seriously, to understand that your kid using porn, thinking it's sex education, I mean, holy fuck. And if you are willing, I would like you to stop me talking right now. And if you're in a space that is safe, like no one's around, that you just Google sex. Just Google sex. Just search sex. And then click on that top 1, 2, 3 links and pretend you're 10. And then tell yourself, how is this landing on you? And if that doesn't encourage you to take steps to talk with your kids, protect your kids, etc., then I got nothing. Clear your cache, because if you're not already a porn user, you don't want to. Anyway, you're grown. I don't need to tell you that. So please, just take a minute and do that. And you can't unsee things. let's just start there. The last time I looked, I think I probably just talked about this. Last time I looked, it's still in my head. I'm grown. I'm 55. I've seen porn. I know what it is. I've had all kinds of sex. So anyway, so some resources for your human beings. So Defend Young Minds is pretty good. They've got a lot of information there. They are anti-porn overall, which is another topic. So we're just going to stay focused on kids here. They do have some good resources and information for having conversations. They are conservative. They do use some and make some shame-based recommendations for helping folks with this. There is Culture Reframed. That's a really good website. It's an anti-porn site, but it is much more progressive in a lot of ways, and also it's anti-porn, totally anti-porn. And there's that. Fight the New Drug. And again, there's nothing perfect, and it's complicated, and the industry in general is a total fucking shit show. And so there's lots and lots there. So if your kids are older, you should talk about the industry. You should talk about the impact of pornography. And one other little thing, I have like random thoughts here, is that there are adolescents who have erectile dysfunction because they're overusing the porn. I mean, seriously, like, I get it that people wank a lot, especially in those lovely adolescent years. And that's normal, but having erectile dysfunction that's not normal. Anyway, books for your kids. So Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. There's a junior version and a senior version. That's kind of the best thing that's out there. I keep looking for other porn books for kids, and they're not great. So these are good enough. Amaze.org has good videos about online safety, that kind of thing. So there are safe places for your kids to learn and for you to learn as well. Of course, the links are in the show notes. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing here. The other thing is that if you have resources you really like, or thoughts, or questions, please go ahead and call them in. The number's 206-926-1522. All right. Let me think if there's anything else. Oh, yeah. And the other thing is, too, if your kid's having a problem and you're confused and need support, I do these quickies. So link is in the show notes. They're 90-minute consultations. They are not. They are 30-minute. That would not be quick. 30-minute consultation, $90. So, okay. Big sigh, loosening my shoulders. I want to tell you something funny. I ain't got nothing. But let's have a question from a real life human being, a real life human parent. And before we get to the question, two things. One is that the recording's a little wonky, but you'll get the gist. And the other is I'm going to give her some tips, and then I'll give you more tips when we get to the end, because I just realized that I said all the things, and then I was like, good luck out there. So I'll give you more explicit tips. Okay, so here we go. Let's deal with this poor person.
Hey, Amy. What do we do if we find out our child has been introduced to porn by a friend at school, and now they're addicted to watching it? They want to stop.
All righty. Her kiddo was shown porn all the time, happens all the time. Kids get these links, they show each other, they share with each other, and it's happening back channel. And most of the time, the kids don't tell that they've seen this kind of stuff. Now, some kids rabbit hole, some kids don't. This poor person has rabbit holed, and he's become addicted, and, very much like the family that I just talked about, he can't stop using it. First of all, a couple things about that. So porn addiction is something that is different than drug and alcohol addiction. So porn addiction has to do with a fundamental part of who we are, our sexuality. And the DSM-37, I don't know where we are with that, the diagnostic and something model that the psychiatrists and the psychologists use to assess things, they don't have this necessarily under the addiction stuff. They don't quite call it that yet because it is different. I'm not being very articulate, but you get the meaning. I'll post links and shit for that in the show notes. So it's different than a drug or alcohol addiction because it is this fundamental part of being human. So using drugs or alcohol, you're trying to use that to avoid something, fix something, etc. And so it's a chemical that comes into the body. This is different because it's the brain. And from what I understand is that when folks get therapy, the appropriate kind of therapy with a therapist who, especially with kids, who understands sexuality, who understands how pornography addiction works, who also has a background in child sexual abuse, because porn exposure can be sexually abusive, that's the kind of therapist they need. And what happens in the therapy is that what happens is whatever is underneath their porn use, they're using the porn for dopamine hits, they're using the porn to help themselves feel better, usually comes to the surface. And once that is managed and treated, usually the young person can recover from it. Not everybody can. People are complicated, underlying conditions, yada, 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 yada. But for this kiddo, for your kiddo, I would highly recommend that you find this kind of therapist. And now, Jesus Christ, it's hard to find a therapist. So when you're out there poking around and looking, one place that might be easier for you to start to find somebody to help your child is to contact an organization that deals with child sexual abuse. So if you go to rainn.org, it's RAINN.org. It takes a hot minute to figure out, but you can find a place where you can put your zip code in and they will find you the sexual assault centers in your area. So you can call them, tell them what's up. They may or may not want to see your child. They may or may not be able to. You can ask them for referrals to therapists who work with kids who have been sexually abused. You can poke around and find out if they have this sort of area of expertise. So this is a big deal. If a child is in this situation, they need therapy. He needs therapy. Well, did you say the gender? I can't remember now. They need therapy, and it's your responsibility, again, to help them get that. And, I wish I could say he'll be fixed, they'll be fixed, it'll be fine, but I can't say that. And what I can say is that you'll feel better if you do everything you can to help them, One other thing. Just in general, like I said, this can be sexually abusive. And I think you can imagine that, especially since you just paused and went and looked at some porns. And I think you can probably imagine how that could be really traumatizing for a child to see that, all the feelings, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is why the person needs to be have a background in sexual abuse and treating sexual abuse. Also, the younger a child is, when they see something like this, if it has been traumatizing for them, the quicker they will get better and recover from it. Pre-puberty exposure is better than in puberty exposure because of the way their bodies are working and their experience of themselves as a sexual person, etc., etc., etc. So I just answered a question and gave a bunch of other data attached to the question. Alrighty, next up. Tips. Okay, first of all, talk to them about sex. They have to know what sex is because it contextualizes porn. They're people having sex. So if you have already taught your kids about sex, you've talked to them about it being pleasurable, something people agree to do, you've got that in place. It makes it tons easier when they see porn and they tell you, ideally, or you find out that they have seen it, then you can say to them, porn is people having sex. And just so you know, porn is not real sex. Regular, real people do not have sex like that. They don't make those noises. They don't do those things. Their bodies don't look like that. And they don't treat each other that way. Okay, I'm throwing ideally in there because it's all sexist and misogynistic and all that shit. And racist. And all kinds of things. So be very clear about that. Then you need to tell them, this can be really hard on kids' hearts and minds and their bodies, and that's not safe for them to look at because it can mess them up in terms of how they have relationships and how they see other people and how they think and feel about sex. So the rule is, and this works really well with people who are under the age of 11, the rule is that, if you see this, please, or if you see it, please tell me. You won't be in trouble. Just want to make sure you feel okay and we can answer any questions you have. That's it. That's it. And then getting books so they understand a little bit about the impact on the brain. They also, another way to just have more conversations about it. And then touching base and touching base. So a couple things you can also ask your kids is like, do you know anybody who's seen that? See what they say. Have kids been sharing links? Do you know anything that's going on at school or whatever? See what they say. And again, you've got to really stress this, that you will not be in trouble. This is going to happen. It's totally normal right now. It's typical. And, kids can get in trouble with other adults if they find out this is happening. I would also toss in there, like, if you have a porn link and you share it with somebody else and their parents find out, it can be really, really bad. We won't be mad. We might be upset, but we love you and will support you no matter what. And we just want you to be safe again and again. This is so important for you to talk with us about. So we're going to keep talking about it and make sure you're okay. And then you stop. And then you stop. And as they get older, you can give them more information about the industry. I think they should know how awful it is. I think they should know about sex trafficking. I think they should know how just how ghastly it is. Sometimes people will say, well, there's ethically produced porn. Absolutely, there's ethically produced porn. And the problem is it is not free. So it needs to be paid for. The other thing people sometimes ask me is, well, why don't I give that to my child as an option? So it's illegal, but whatever. If you feel comfortable doing that, I want to say okay, but it can be a slippery slope. You could do some alternatives. I've got a whole bunch of racy romantic young adult novels on my website. So that's one place you could look on my bookstore. Give them books if they're reading. You can, you can get back issues of Playboy, Playgirl, all that, Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Anybody remember International Mail? Whoo, full of hot guys in tiny outfits. And, as a grown-up now, I was like, oh, these are for people. The people who are men who are straight necessarily, this is like 80s, right? Wear these things, outfits. Of course, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Anyway, I think the target audience was people who aren't straight. So those are some options. And I really want you to be thinking about this. And again, please don't beat yourself up. This is complicated, and it's just one of those things that no one wants to think about. And it so sucks that this is part of sexuality education now. But you can help your kids. You can help them feel good about themselves. You can help them understand, again, that nobody's body looks like that. That's why I am such a recommender of, books that show human bodies, that show bodies in all their glory, different bodies. If you're naked in front of your kids, awesome. Especially with women's bodies, we are bumpy, lumpy, stretch marky, all kind of things go on. One boob's bigger than the other for most folks. And then with the tallywhackers, they need to see a tallywhacker in the flesh, in an appropriate way. Like, don't run around and say, okay, hey, you know what? You haven't seen my naked body, so we're just going to have a fashion show so you can look at me and ask me questions about my body. No, don't do that, because just no. All right. I feel like that has been enough of the porning from me. And again, if you need help or support, please reach out to me. We can do a quickie. And the other thing too is that if you are feeling behind on the sex talk situation, go to my website, click on the Solution Center. There is so much information there about talking with your kids and getting yourself in that space of showing up as that trustworthy adult that you probably did not have. And you can get over that and become that person for your kids. Okay. Go out there, do something fun and friendly. And if you are feeling like this was helpful, if you would be willing to share it with a friend or two as an opportunity for y'all to start talking about how you want to manage this with your kids' friends. And, so there you go. So I've got to find please call me with some funny stuff. Oh, I always forget. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. That's where the funny stuff happens. And it's both are at Birds Bees Kids. And I also post, which is super fun for y'all and for me, I post Help Another Parent, where sometimes it's questions from parents and you get to answer. You get to be helpful and kind, because people sure as hell make mistakes when they are, have questions or stuff they've talked about with their kids about. So go check that out. They're really fun. And again, they're super helpful to me because y'all are smart. You're smarter than me. And just as an example, there is one right now where a child asked their parent, what does fuck mean? The child was 6. And I want you to just be compassionate here. I believe the mom was just a little blown out of the water by that. And she said a lot of things to her kiddo that were kind of inaccurate. So she said that fuck means rape, and then kind of went from there. So good advice about undoing that. I highly recommend you go and see that. I don't know. It's yesterday, 11:10. I think it went up yesterday, November 10th. And it's in both places, Instagram and Facebook. So go check that out and think about it from like, okay, she made a mistake, right? We make a lot of mistakes in parenting. Anyway, that was one of the most interesting ones that's happened in a while. So there's tons and tons and tons of others. Okay, now I'm officially done. Good luck out there. You've got this. Don't be afraid to talk about this. And remember, what's the goal here? Whole, healthy, happy adults. And this is going to help get them there. All right. Adios. Have a great day. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522. So please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.